Hey everyone, good to be with you again. Here we are, another Monday, Lunch and Learn, where we're going to talk about. Oh, Don, I just noticed my screen says Student Support Services Proposal Writing, Lunch and Learn. Maybe that's just not my thing. Um, but what we're here for is Talent Search and EOC. Just taking some time out from your day so that we can talk about anything and everything regarding the proposal. As always, I am joined here by Teresa Thompson Pickney, who I've known for over 30 years. And, we started off working Talent Search together. She actually went through Talent Search and then SSS. And now we are working together on Talent Search and EOC proposals and some other things we got going on. I also have online here with us Donna Walls and also Leah, and they are going to assist us with chats and Q&As and also, all the other invitations and Zoom things. So they do so much behind the scenes. Can't do it. I can't do anything without them anymore. I just gotten so used to having them there helping me out and helping y'all out to get these proposals one and done. So anyway, in the chat, we're going to put a link to the Google Drive that has two folders. There's one for EOC and Talent Search. I think we put it together actually. Yes. And you might want to check those out. We're updating those when we get new materials or find some other information that might be helpful. Also in the Q&A, please put your questions in the Q&A. I'd really appreciate it there because we're trying to get a running list of questions that we can compile. And here we have the poll. First time writing an EOC or Talent Search proposal, we have 57% yes and 43% no. Okay, thank you, Donna. I appreciate that. And yes, thank you. Leah's put the link to the Google Drive resources. And let's go ahead and get started here. We do have a question, right, Teresa?
Yes. The first question is for clarification, what year's APR is the PE points counted? A prior experience point. So let me just reread this. For clarification, what year's annual performance report is the prior experience points counted for? So I have looked that up, Lisa, and it for
Mm-hmm.
Talent Search and EOC is 22, 23, 23, 24, and 24, 25. Those are the projected years, and those would be years 2, 3, and 4.
Right. So thank you. If you could put that in the chat, that would be
Okay.
great. Or in the Q&A where they ask the question.
Okay.
And so that means, correct me if I'm wrong, Teresa, this is the year, the last APR that was, no, this one for 24-25, the one that we're currently in is the last chance that folks have in order to get some points. And remember, y'all, you've got to get your numbers. It's always been a numbers game. Not even a game, it's a horrible game, but just putting it blunt, I mean, you've got to get your numbers because if you don't hit your 500, let's say you're funded to serve 500, you've given up 3 points. I mean, maybe if you come in at 480 out of 500, you're still within the 90% of your funded to serve. So you can go ahead and be eligible to try to earn points for your other objectives. But you've already lost 3 precious points by not having your numbers. Okay, so just want to put that out there. Okay, and something where I can't see the questions, I could see them before. Let's see, are there any? Oh, there it is, my number. Are there any other questions? Oh, we've answered two of them. Okay,
Yeah,
anybody else have any?
it was part two. The second question was just saying that it was for Talent Search.
Okay, all right. So I don't have any more news, y'all, as to when I think this will be done. I did hear, Teresa, that someone internally confirmed that they have finished all the reading for SSS and they claim they're on track to get notifications out in maybe mid to late June is what I'm hearing, which is a pretty good indicator that they're moving forward. And so does that change when I think this will be due? Um, I'm still hoping that, uh, I mean, I'm hoping that'll be due at the end of September, but it could get pushed back again to the date, to the timing that we're used to, which is in January or February of 2026. That's what we were planning originally. Then when SSS came out and they surprised us and had it due, way earlier. Then that's where I started talking about that it would be due in July of 2025. Now I've changed my planning to have it done, have it due at the end of September. So we're working as though everything needs to be done by the beginning of September. And until I've heard anything else, and some of y'all may have heard something, I don't know if some of y'all went directly to policy seminar or have gone to some of your state conferences. If you've heard anything else, please let me know. Is anyone saying they have heard something? Let's see here. There's a question. Do you think the earliest will be due is September? I think the earliest possible would be at the end of September. The earliest. I mean, I could be surprised. That's what I'm betting on. That's what my gut's telling me. I could be wrong. I always tell people I've been more right than wrong, but I still could be wrong. The SSS one totally threw me off. I mean, I never even thought in a million years that they would have SSS come out that early. I thought it was a joke actually when it came out. Teresa, I said, I just walked away from it. I said, I'm just not going to think about it. And I pretended it didn't happen. And then I went, looked again, it still says, and I said, oh my God, this is actually happening. How can they do that? So as you all know, so many things are going on. Nothing would surprise me, but we do have to plan. And so that's why, especially, with talent search, with school, you know, uh, basically closing down for the summer, starting in mid-May. I don't want to wait to get target school information or commitment from applicant, from the target schools and letters of commitment. I don't want to wait to do that until September. I want to try to lock that in now. If I have to, I can update my information. But that's why I'm really telling folks to, get your data updated now. Try to talk to some target school folks now. Get those letters of commitment going or MOUs now. It's been 5 years for some of y'all who have written before, and a lot has changed in 5 years in the way these school districts handle their letters of commitment. Back in the day, I know Teresa and I could have walked in and gotten a principal to sign it right there, with a letter we gave them, and they'd sign it. Now they're like, no, it's got to go to a board meeting. It's got to be reviewed. It's got to go through our attorneys. So you need to double check to make sure that they haven't implemented some new sort of procedure that might throw a wrench in your planning. Okay. So I don't know if we have another question or if that kind of answered that question there. I've already lost my little bar at the bottom. But any other questions? I do get some questions. Go ahead, Teresa.
Yes, the next question is, I am writing a talent search proposal for an existing program. When it comes to getting letters of commitment from our school districts, should I email the superintendent and principals and send a copy of the letter they wrote us for the last proposal, or do I go see them in person?
I definitely would think if you can go in person. I mean, it's always better to try to see folks. It may not work out that way, but make out the attempt. And I would definitely update your letters of commitment and also have a draft MOU ready in case they require that. Or maybe you can find out when you're setting the appointment, because it's been a while. You want to make sure what's the proper protocol. You might want to start with the principal and ask the principal or find out from the principal secretary ahead of time. I'm just going to, that's when you can maybe send the principal secretary a copy of, last time, the letter they signed last time, and maybe another updated version of what you need to get this time around, because you might want to look at that and tweak it a little bit more. Things have changed. You don't want to keep sending them the old one, but find out if you can schedule a face-to-face meeting, and also find out if this is something that could be, taken care of in one initial meeting, or do have any new procedures been put into place that will require additional input from the school district superintendent. I mean, in find out. Some people will say it's got to go to the superintendent. So that's a whole nother route. The other reason why I think it's really good for you to do that face to face is because now's the time to remind them, take them your last APR, Prepare some sort of infographic, some sort of, don't show them the boring APR, but if you can take that data and make it interesting and use it as an opportunity to let them know what y'all have been doing the last 5 years, and also try to get that letter. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Teresa.
No, I think that what you said is fine. I don't have anything to add, but definitely, um, and I also would say, being that you are an existing program, whatever the protocol was last time, whatever the relationship that you have right now, you want to take advantage of any relationships that you have at the superintendent level as well as at the principal level.
Totally. It's stronger, you know, you try to do and meet with whoever you can. Best perfect talent search world, you've got the superintendent signing the letter. Do the regulations state it must be the superintendent? No, it does not. I think it's better, but you may not be able to get that. Sometimes I was able to get the superintendent's letter there in Fort Worth. Easier, Teresa, than I could from some of the target school teachers,
Yes.
right? So
Yeah,
you know,
we over the years we moved from principal letters to superintendent letters. And it was really a way to really leverage the relationship and what we were doing and the outcomes and our performance to
mhm.
really relay that to the superintendent. And then even when one superintendent left, we just made our business, even if it wasn't a grant cycle, to get in there and meet with the superintendent. Fortunately, our last superintendent before I retired was an Upper Bound alum. We wouldn't have never known that had we not actually gone and met with the superintendent. So
That's true. That's true. You never know who knows. And you bring up a great point about strategically during the course of your when you get refunded, everything's great. But principals come and go. Superintendents don't come and go as frequently, right? So if you get it from them, it's more leverage. And like Teresa said, you also gives you a chance to connect, and also you never know um, you know, uh, uh, who they know. And then other times, y'all, if you can't for some reason get to the superintendent or the principal, I know it's happened sometimes. There's stuff's going on. Another route could be the school board members. You should be reaching out to them anyway, not just to get a letter of commitment, but school board members should know about your programs because they can sometimes get you the data that you need, and they can push things for you. They are the ones that, pretty much the superintendent reports to. So we used to forget about school board members, Teresa. It wasn't until I left being a full-time director and then someone explained to me, you got to get to the school board. So if you ever have some target schools that are not, loving you like they used to, or letting you see students, or even the superintendent, then sometimes you go to the school board. But you should do that anyway. They need to know about you and what the great work that you're doing. A lot of school members don't even know you exist, and they need to know that y'all exist. Okay. So next question.
I
Let
have
me
lost
see.
my
Oh,
screen.
that's fine. I did too. Do you have draft letters of support available in the Google Drive? I'd like to completely redo our letter of support when we meet with our schools. Yes, we do, Jessica. We have some. Double check me, Don or Leah, or I thought I put some in there.
Yeah, they're
Okay,
there.
great. I think I also put an MOU. I mean, I would really prefer an MOU, actually, but that might take another layer of meeting with, their legal department and their school boards. But those MOUs, I think, are more impactful. What do we do? What do you do? But you do you, whichever one works for y'all and gets, the information that you need. But I wouldn't be surprised, Teresa, if later on, like with Gear Up and some of the other funding, that they will require MOUs. I
Mhm.
think these letters of commitment are a thing of the past, and they're going to want something very structured. So yes, and yeah, so there's also an MOU there. So see what you can do there. So I'm going to answer that. And then Trio, I looked at my numbers and my budget will be 92% of the current budget due to the yearly state raises. Yeah, that's about right. I am concerned that my proposal will be deducted points due to this, but you can't do anything about it. There's nothing you can do unless your college or your agency will fund a position, Or you can say that your college or agency is going to pay for your supplies, your travel, other things like that. What are the advantages and disadvantages of having the grantee cover the director's salaries, portion of fringe, etc.? I do not want to eliminate a position, but I may have to. Well, again, and I just have to be completely blunt when it comes to personnel. When we look at folks' continuation budgets for a lot of our clients, and they're in the same situation, you're no different. It's about right, 92%, 92%. And, these raises and insurance, my insurance just went up 15%, my health insurance. And I'm like, what? It just 1 year, another $200 a month extra that I'm going to have to pay, multiply that times, if it was a project and we had folks, you know, this is about right. So, we have to tell them when we do the budget, we have to be the bad guys in a sense and say, you can't afford that administrative assistant position anymore. You can't. Even if it's split, you're going to have to let them go. I would hate to do it, but you got to look at your administrative staff, your clericals, any support staff. You may have to, if you have that in the budget, that's something that you may have to eliminate in order to have the advisors that you need for to provide the direct services. You won't lose points because 92% of your budget is in personnel and fringe. As long as you in your budget narrative, remember anytime that the program application, the RFP that I call, it'll tell you, you know what, if your fringe is over 20%, you must, if it goes over 20%, you must provide a breakdown. Well, ours is, we have folks that have up to 73% fringe. I don't know if y'all's is that high, but that's about 60 50 to 73. The lowest I've seen realistically, is about 45%. So when you put that, when you state that and break it down, you let the reader know. Please note the salaries and the fringe benefit rates are institutional policies. You let them know you have no choice, and they'll be told about that, because that's the one thing, there's a couple of things that you can't control when it gets to the budget, and that's how much you have to pay people, and what HR says the qualifications they have to have, and the fringe rate. But make sure you break it down and you let them know this is due to this. And if you have a position that maybe it's an advisor that's been there forever, and you have two advisors and they have different salaries, and one's really high because they've been there forever, you make sure to point that out. Please note that one of the lead advisor or the senior advisor, the salary is due to longevity, or they've been, seniority. Explain that. So you shouldn't lose points there, but you could lose points if the reader doesn't think you have enough full-time people to serve a minimum of 500 students. Like, I would question if I had one director and one advisor only to serve 500 students, but they had a full-time administrative assistant. I would be like, I'm going to take a point off. They should have had one director and two um, full-time administrative. I'm sorry, two project advisors. So you could lose points because your staffing is not sufficient. So a lot of existing programs are thinking about, or you're going to have, that's why we say do the budget first. And I'm glad you're already looking at that. And you can't use any EOC. Yeah, EOC is even, yeah. Uh, is that 83? I'm not sure what that means. But yeah, I mean, do the budget first and plan it out for 5 years. And you've got to start having that hard conversation with yourself and your boss as to what positions that are non direct delivery of services. The last folks I ever want to cut down their time or eliminate are our project advisors, because without them, I'm nothing. I'm nothing. So a lot of times these talent search grants are like the director and two advisors, the new ones, and they're still hurting. And their university or agency is gonna have to pay and give some money and cover some things. And the same thing with EOC is even worse. EOC is even worse. I have a client who they were new in the last funding cycle, Teresa, and they've been living off a carryover. And then now, when they did their budget, finally they're fully staffed, and they could barely make it work for this this year, because the college instituted a big increase. And they did have a little bit of carryover. The program officer wouldn't let them use the carryover to pay for any fringe or salary. They said, no, you're going to have, no, no, you're going to have to get get the institution to pay it, or but they wouldn't let them. They wouldn't let them keep it on. So we went back and forth, back and forth. And so they're okay for now, but they're already making plans in the future that they're going to have to, the agency or college is going to have to pay something, whether it's to fund a position or part of a position, or to cover all the other things like supplies, travel, other, those kind of things. The database, the money now is only barely covering your personnel. And that's the reality of it. Right, Teresa? That's what you've been seeing. It's really hard for new ones to get funded. Okay. So let's see here. At the COE webinar, I guess this was last week for EOC, it was mentioned that if a director is split, they should consider a full-time coordinator. What if that is not in your budget to do so? We are an existing program and did not have a full-time coordinator last grant cycle. This is a great question. And see, this is coming up again. All right, so there's a regulation that says you need to have a full-time director unless you've asked to be split. So a lot of you existing programs have been split, but this is the other, but you still could lose a point. Eileen, you still could lose a point even if you put in your proposal, this has been done for a million years, it's been approved, but it could be so competitive that they don't care. They've been told, you know what? We don't care if they've been approved by everybody and have been doing it forever and a day. There's not a full-time director. Take a point off. And wait a minute. Let me have you look at go back. Do they have an assistant director, or do they have a coordinator, or do they have even a lead advisor that is there at 100% time and effort that they say is in charge when they're not there? Well, no, they don't mention that. Take 2 points off. All right, that's how competitive it's going to be. So you're going to have to, at least at the bare minimum, if you're split, you have to stay split. You cannot go back. Okay, this is the second thing that you can't control, just like you can't control how much salaries are paid and how much fringe benefit the college pays out or the agency. The other thing is, if you're split, you cannot go back to 100%, right? Just to make on paper, and then like we used to back in the day, Teresa, go, well, when I get refunded, then I'll negotiate. It's just to get through the readers, then they'll let me go back to being split, because I didn't want to lose that point for not being full time. So we would play that game. They cut on to that and they cut us off. They said, oh no, if you're split, you stay split. So this is the other thing. So now the issue is, in order for me not to lose another point, not to lose 2 points, because just in your mind, worst case scenario, think that you've already lost a point because you're not full time, even though you've been approved. Worst case scenario, right? You probably have enough prior experience points to survive that. Okay. But you don't want to lose 2 points. So is there any way you can make someone a lead advisor, pay them a little bit more money, and tweak their job description or their requirements that requires them to have some supervisory experience or a little bit more length of time as providing services, and that they will serve in your absence? They will be able to do limited supervisory and management duties, because the bottom line is you can't be in two places at the same time, right? So, or if you don't have the money for it, then worst case scenario, be prepared to lose 2 points. And hopefully you have more than 2 points set aside for your prior experience. Okay, that's worst case scenario. I want you to contact me after, if you leave it alone and you don't put anybody as a lead advisor or coordinator or assistant director. And again, it could be a lead advisor. And you do that and it goes through and you don't lose any points, please let me know. But there are folks out there that every once in a while they'll tell me, yep, yeah, I didn't lose a point. I said, well, I'm happy for you, but then I can connect you with 3 other people who did lose points. So you never know. And again, moving forward, I think I feel confident that we're going to survive, but for a while, there's not going to be any extra money. So it's going to be cutthroat to get funded and to stay funded. So those of us that have prior experience points expect to cash a lot of them in because of things like this where we have no choice, our hands are tied. And if I don't have any money to promote somebody to be a lead advisor, so be it. Be prepared to lose 2 points at the worst. Okay. Just you know, kiss that perfect scores goodbye. I'm trying to get mentally ready for it because, we love getting our 100%, perfect scores. And I've got to prepare myself that this time around, it's going to be so much. They will be looking for stuff. So I doubt there'll be very many perfect scores. I mean, so I have to rely on my prior experience. That's why I go back to getting your numbers. And this is the last year to get your numbers. So thanks for the question, Eileen. That's a very, very, and I'm glad that you mentioned that COE was also talking about that as well, because we've always been on that kick, to make sure that we have those um, that covered. Because again, knowing what I know and what's the proposals we've seen in the readers' comments, if I was a reader and I have these two proposals and they're scoring neck and neck, and they tell me nope, you can't leave until one of these, you got to find a point to take away. If I don't do it in the objectives, then I'll go to the plan of operation where they show me the breakdown. And if they're not 100% director, I'll take a point out. Say they're not 100% director, or and they don't have anybody who's a lead coordinator or lead advisor. And you can't argue with that. I mean, you can get mad. You can say it's not in the regulations. Um, but really, you have no defense. Teresa, I don't know if you want to add to that or if you ever had that issue. Oh, okay. I don't think I can hear you. Let me see. Let me see if we have a question. Okay, here's a question. Hey, Jessica, I'm in the position you're discussing. I think I always remember you and use you as an example. All these years, it still happens, right? I became split director since we last wrote in 2021 and have two advisors and a 50% office manager. If I write one of the advisors, the lead advisor with day-to-day administration of the project, should I also note on the budget that they will have a slightly increased salary? Yes. Yes. What would be a fair increase from the advisor to the lead advisor? Maybe whatever you can afford. I mean, if it's just a little bit of money, I mean, they're not going to criticize that as much as the time. It's more important for you to worry about making sure that someone is a lead advisor and has a slightly different job description or requirements. And so, how we usually have advisors and we have one set of requirements. You're going to have to, put a little bit more, uh, create a slightly different minimum requirements and job description, which you won't need in the proposal, but you will need a slightly different set of job requirements for that lead advisor. And so the fair increase, whatever you can squeak through. Teresa, I don't know if you have any suggestions on that, but it kind of it's how much do you have in your budget and how much you can spare. But I don't think you'll be judged so much on that as it'll be outweighed with the benefits of the scrutiny will be on, oh, there is a lead advisor. I don't think there'll be much scrutiny on the difference in the salaries. What do you think, Teresa?
Yeah, I'm not, they really won't see the increase because they won't be comparing it to your previous budget. They'll, if you have two advisors, they would see that one of them is a lead. So therefore, you would definitely want to have, want to show that that person is making more money. Internally, if you're in higher education, you also may want to go ahead and have a conversation with HR, and talk through some of those elements of what that would look like and see if there are thresholds, if there's a maximum threshold, just to make sure, you're not going over the threshold of someone being bumped up and it's more duties versus a new position and things of that sort. So just making sure you're clear about what that looks like on your campus would be important as well. But as far as the increase, I mean, I think 5% is good, but 10% is better. It just depends on what you can afford. If you can afford to do more, then you should consider doing more if that's within the parameters of your HR.
Yeah, whatever you can spare. But yeah, as long as there's some difference, right? Great question. And Misty, are you with Talent Search or EOC? I don't know if I separated those letters. I usually don't do an MOU with EOC. I do it more with Talent Search. So I thought I had an MOU in the Talent Search letters of commitment. Can one of
Okay.
y'all, Donna or Leah or Teresa, somebody check? Because I know I have one. So if it's not there, I don't know if I didn't label it clearly, but I developed one. I dreamed maybe I put it in the proposal writing
I'm just seeing letters
Google
of
Drive.
commitment. I don't see
Okay.
anything labeled MOU either.
Okay. Okay. Well, that I have, thanks, Misty. I must have, I'm thinking that I put it in the town search proposal writing one. Donna, could you download from, can you look in the talent search proposal writing Google Drive? And it's session number, applicant and community support. So that would
Okay.
be maybe session number 6 or 7. And
Okay.
I think there's a letter there. I don't know if you can upload it, but maybe you can put it in the chat and then I'll upload it.
Okay.
Thank you, but we'll get that there, Misty. Give us some time until this afternoon, but I'll get you an MOU so you can look at that because I thought it was a pretty good one. So I know I put it somewhere. Okay, so thank you. Let's see here. No problem. Thanks for letting me know. I meant to do it. Don't you love that? I meant to, I thought I had. I did it for someone. Okay, so great. Okay, so let's see if we have any other questions. Okay, I don't know what happened here. I'm going to close that. Okay, I'm stuck on something. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Because I got stuck. Here on my end, the Q and A um, window will not close. There it is. Okay. And so I answered it live, done with that. Okay, so let me see. If there are any other, if there are no questions, no other questions this time, I have a question I received via email, and I'll go into that. Okay, a couple of questions. So someone in a school district, Teresa, they see if I'm on the right track here. They serve the whole school district. They recently had a high school open up this year, and they want to go serve students at that new high school. And they were asking me if they needed to get prior approval to serve that high school, the new one. And I said, it's in the school district, right? That you already is your target school district. She goes, yes. So I said, then you don't need to ask them because they're just another one of the schools there. Would I be correct in letting her know she could go ahead and start serving them? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's the target area.
Right. They're within the target area and that's school
Mhm.
district.
The target school district. Yeah.
Okay. But then it got interesting. But as it always is. She goes, well, we want to include them in next in the proposal for we want to list them because we list all the high schools and some of the middle schools, you know. So we want to it's a new school. They're going to give us all, you know, they're going to, you know, include us with a lot of things. So we want to include them in the next proposal. And I'm like, wait a minute. Do you see the problem with that, Teresa? If they want to include a brand new established school in their proposal in their needs section. And I said, you know, they're not old enough to have graduation persistence
Right. The
data, right?
data is missing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I said to her, look, if you want to list them in your need section, they're not going to show any need because they're not going to have persistence data. They have to be around for a couple of years, from 1 year to, you know, to show persistence. And then what about the graduation rate? You know, they just need one set of seniors. But, you know, I was saying that's going to be tough. And then also, you know, they're in the target area. So you can still serve them. So you can keep them off officially. They're not going to be listed as an official target school in the future, now or in the future for a while. But you can still serve them because, like you said, they are still, that school is in the target area, which is the school district. So I said, you can have your cake and eat it too. There's no need to have them individually listed. Now, the definition of a target school is a school where the focus of your identification, recruitment, selection, and serving of students occurs. But you could still work with a school that's not a target school, but it's in the target area. They're what we call our non-target schools that are in the target area. The only thing is the difference is a target school is the focus. So that means that that non-target school that's not listed as an official target school, but in the target area, you can't go to them as frequently or treat them with the same intensity as you would with your true blue target schools. So you should always keep them, your target schools are your best friends, and the non-target schools that are not listed but in the target area are your acquaintances. So you go more often to your target schools. You don't go as frequently to the non-target schools. You can still have students there, you can still recruit, but you never want it to be so that there's more students at the non-target schools than at your target schools. See where I'm going with that? So this may come up when you all do the data collection for your existing schools and you realize that one of your schools is not showing need. If they're still in the target area, there's a possibility, depending on how many schools are officially listed, you may be able to take them off of the official target school list, but still continue to serve them because they're still in the target area. You would only do that if they weren't showing need, and if you force them to be part of the grant, you might lose points. If you have prior experience points and you don't mind that your target school is showing a better one school is showing a better college enrollment rate than the state or the nation, but overall your average is fine, you're still going to lose a point because they're looking at these schools individually. So all your target schools have to be doing worse than another entity that you're comparing them to. They each have to be doing worse, and then the average, of course, will have to do worse. But you guys may have to make some tough decisions based on the data you're collecting. But that's one strategy where, well, we'll lose you as an official target school, but we'll still keep serving you. I just can't serve you as much, but we're not going to lose you. Teresa, have you ever had, I've done that before many times.
Yeah, we've done it. Yeah. I mean, it after what, 25 years, you do a lot of
Stuff
things
changes.
along the way. Yeah.
Stuff changes in order to survive. So that was the conversation. I don't know if we have any other questions. I have another couple of. Okay, so again, back to the target schools. Well, the next question was, well, what is the recommended percentage of students that a project should serve for a non-target area? I guess serve in a non-target area. What is a recommended percentage that Talent Search project should serve in a non-target area? And my answer is you're not supposed to serve anybody that's not in the non-target area. And so that was my first thing. You can only serve students from the target area. Okay. And within the target area are a bunch of schools, and there are also a bunch of programs and non-target schools. Remember, it's all about your target area. The regulations state that you can serve eligible people that reside in the target area. Now, we typically focus on target schools, but if you're hurting for your numbers and you got to make your numbers, you can serve students that don't go to the target schools as long as they're in the target area. She said, how many can I serve that are not in the target area? And I said, 0. Okay. But I think she meant that are not at the target schools. She's thinking, I've heard no more than 10%, that we shouldn't serve more than 10%. And I'm going to revise this because I think she meant 10% students that do not attend the target schools, but they're still in the target area. Okay, so that 10% is actually not having to do with the target schools. Because on the APR, they ask you, how many students are going to your target schools? And then there's a question, how many are going to non-target schools? Okay, so, and there's no red flag there. Where you get on the APR, a pop-up window comes up on the APR. If you, on section 3, where you talk about for Talent Search and EOC, but for Talent Search, where you talk about how many sixth graders you have, how many seventh graders you have, eighth graders, ninth graders, 10th graders, 11th graders, 12th graders. And then we have some other categories. And one of them is other. And the other in talent search tends to be those students that have graduated from high school last year or 5 years ago or 10 years ago, that if there's no EOC in the area, I can go ahead and serve because there's no EOC in the area, but they're not a 12th grader. They're a high school grad with no post. Well, they're considered part of the other. I can count them toward my numbers, but if I, for some reason, have more than 10% of my 500 in that one line, a pop-up window will come up, says, and it will say, please describe or tell us why you have 10% or more in the other category. It's not telling you you can't do it. I think people avoid it. So that's why they start telling other people, you can't serve more than 10% of other. No, you can go over that 10%. You just have to explain that, well, maybe there was a lack of access to some of your target schools, or one of the target schools had a new administration, so you weren't able to get in there. There's always an explanation. But that's where that 10% comes. And it has really nothing to do with the target schools. It's about the individual classification of that student that you're working with that maybe is beyond the 12th grade year. And they're someone who maybe graduated, was a senior last year with y'all and didn't end up going to college after all. So I kept them, after their first year of when they should have been a freshman, but they didn't go. Now they're a high school grad with no post. So I get another chance to work with them and get them into college. They don't count toward my objectives, but the most important thing is they count toward my numbers, so that's what I'm excited about. So again, that 10% pops up and people get it all, that it's a hard, fast rule and it's about target schools and it's about grade levels. It is having to do with the students' educational standing when you first start working with them at the beginning of every new year. If you have more than 10% that happen to be an other, you will have some explaining to do, but it doesn't mean that you cannot, type up something and keep on going to get that APR done. Okay, so that's my questions that we went through. Are there any other questions?
Yes, there's a add-on to that one as far as a question. What about students who move out of the target area and have no TRIO program there? I thought we could continue to serve them.
They're out of the target. There were a couple of things there. The intent is that if they move away from the target area, you have no requirement to follow them and to continue to serve them. Okay, that's the first thing. And way back when that regulation was first discussed, there was nothing, there was not, virtual was not, this is science fiction, right, Teresa? When we started working, we didn't have the internet, Teresa, remember? We'd have no internet. We had the big floppy disks. It was crazy. We made it work. So this is all science fiction to do virtual. So I guess what y'all are saying is possibly, and please provide me some follow-up info. Would you say that student, you would then provide services virtually? I might do that if they were a student that has been with me for a while, or if they're a senior student. I wouldn't keep them for years like that, because then it's so difficult to track. And people, I've heard it all, Teresa, they say, oh no, we're going to come to see you, because I can't come to see, look, 92% of my budget is in staff and fringe. I have zero money to travel to go see folks in person. So this means you should do it case by case. You should have, as an overall rule, a policy. That's why you have your policies procedures manual, that your policy could be, once you leave a target school, some people have policies where if you no longer attend the target school, then that's it. You're not in the program anymore. Okay, that's one policy. Because maybe you have enough at your target schools where you can be that way. And you try to refer them to someone else, but you could be that way. Or you could have another policy that says, well, once you leave this target school, as long as you're still in the target area, we'll try to serve you. at a bit at a minimum rate, I mean, not at the same intensity. You can't be everywhere for everyone, right? All the time. You don't have enough money. Your staff, if you have 6 target schools, you don't want to actually you don't want to actually send your staff to 18 when it's all said and done, because you promise to follow students. It gets really, really management, but just really crazy. I know, been there, done that. Or you could have that third policy that says, oh, yeah, if you don't go to our target schools or in the target area and you've been in the program, we'll continue to serve you virtually. I think that's a real stretch. And I think you might have to do some explaining to, if you ever, if that ever came to light in your justification for that. Well, how would you document that you saw them virtually? How would you, what's the verification there? So I would stay away from that, serving students that no longer are in the target area. Okay. And I might do that second policy of, well, it depends, if you don't go to a target school anymore, but you're in the target area, it depends. I wouldn't advertise that. And I think I would have initially as my first policy. If you leave the target school, we can't provide you with any services, but it depends. I mean, I can only talk that way if I have enough numbers. If I don't have the numbers, I'm doing all those 3 things to make my numbers right. Teresa, it's how you're set up, you know. Um, Urban, if you're rural, you may have to do that, but you need to explain how this happens.
Yeah.
And would I possibly put that in the proposal that I'm all over the place? No, this would be something that I would do only if I have to do, is that third option. And it's kind of a gray area because they're not in the target area anymore. At least a non-target school is, it must be in the target area. But if this student leaves the target area completely, that's a hard sell. You would never recruit a new student that was not living in the target area to begin with or going to school. So the question becomes, how, with so little staff, so little money, realistically, if you put that in your proposal, they would think, what's this doesn't make any sense. Right? We do it, but it sounds ludicrous, right? To anyone looking at our budget and how many people we have. When coming up with a comparison group for the needs section, do you think it's better to compare it to state or national data? Okay, we'll stop right there. It's whoever, you compare yourself to whoever is going to make it look like you have the most need possible. Okay. So, if when I compare myself to Teresa, and she is making me look like I don't know, I'm lost, versus someone else who maybe I'm neck and neck with them. No, I'm going to go with whoever or whatever is going to show that our schools are lagging behind academically. Okay. So your state is ranked 49th in the country, right, for education. So there's only a point or 2 difference in some of the need data and some measures the target school or higher. Should I use the state data as a comparison group for the target schools and explain that the state as a whole is bad, or just compare? I would compare it to national data. Right? I would compare it to national data because that's right. Is that the rationale? Teresa, am I hearing this correctly that, or reading this correctly, that her schools don't look that bad when she compares it to the state, but when she compares the state to the national rate, it's on.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the I'm interpreting it.
That's what I would do. Go ahead in your data collection spreadsheet, go ahead and put, for every single table, put state data anyway. I mean, just on the spreadsheet, and then national data. And then you can see, and then across the board, what I would prefer is if you don't go back and forth with one table, compare yourself to the state and the next to the nation only. In a perfect talent search world or perfect EOC world, we don't live in perfect worlds, but it would be your schools, target schools compared to the state, compared to the nation, and that your schools would look worse when you compare it to both state and national rates. But that doesn't happen. So if you're seeing a trend when you do that spreadsheet, that across the board, like you said, it's only a 2-point difference, doesn't show need. But you know what? If I only compare ourselves to national data showing need, then you stick to that national data only across the board. Okay. So I should use state data. No, so we talked about that. So run your numbers and you all may need to make the decision, but run it for both and then you can have the numbers to make a solid decision. And if you can, try to keep it consistent to the same, if you can, comparison. Like in your case would be the national data. Okay, great question. I love it. EOC, speaking of travel, how much should you have in travel, especially conference travel? 4% of the entire budget. Okay, that 4% comes from a regulation for student support services. We don't have any talent search, EOC, Upward Bound. I mean, all the other programs, there is no cap. There's no recommendation as to what percentage of your budget. I will tell you though, when you do the budget, you're going to have zero for travel. Um, um, unless you definitely give up a position, a clerical position, administrative assistant position, and you may have some breathing room to pay for some of your supplies and for some travel. Now, if you look in the program application for both EOC and Talent Search, in the budget section, I used to remember the page number, Teresa. I don't remember the page number anymore, but look where it starts talking about the components of the budget toward the end of the program application. It will tell you this is the TRIO travel guidelines. It's not telling you must have travel. And I'm telling you, when you do these budgets, I don't think you have any money for travel. So it's like something you don't have to worry about because you don't have the money for it. But if you were if you had a little bit of money, then I always try to push to have the director go to the National TRIO Conference at least. But even more important than that, EOC, you got to have money for mileage because your folks has got to draw. Your folks have to EOC, educational opportunity centers. The idea is that you all have multiple office locations, or not office locations, but you have multiple sites where you are expected to go into the community and provide services. That's why y'all are educational opportunity centers. One project, it's always plural. I learned that the hard way, and someone gave me a very stern explanation because I said, but you're only like one. You don't have 3 or 4 of them. And she was the one that told me, oh no, because this is our central office, but we have to go out. Even if we don't have an actual office, we go to the workforce center, we go to the library. That's why we're called EOCs. Okay. And so you've got to have money for mileage. So that's number one. Even before any student travel in both EOC and Talent Search, you better have the mileage to go to your target schools first. Staff mileage. What is it, like 70 cents now a mile? I think in some places, if you have anything left at all, then maybe for the director to go to the national conference. And again, those guidelines, I kind of chuckle when I think about those guidelines because I've never had enough money to follow the guidelines in both EOC or Talent Search, where it says the director, national conference, a regional conference and state, and the advisors only state. They don't want to see in the proposal budget that your advisors are going to regional or national, even though we do it in reality. But those are the guidelines, right? So you definitely are very limited in travel, but you must have at least some for mileage. And Teresa, go ahead. You wanted to answer that question? Teresa? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. So the travel guidelines are on page for EOC is on page 92 of the RFP from the last competition.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. How will it look if I don't provide professional development? Okay. Well, under other is usually where it goes. But if you don't, okay, if it's not in your budget, it doesn't mean that you can't provide it through virtual, you could say, in the plan of operation, and you can remind the reader and under the other category, if you're, and it's a good point, if you don't have anything listed there, and that's traditionally where we put professional development for staff in the other category of the budget. You could put in the narrative, please note that staff will attend for priority Department of Education priority trainings that are virtual and provided at no cost. And you won't have to pay for any travel or any lodging to attend those. So you can focus on that. And you can also mention it first in the plan of operation and the next to last. I think that the last question in the plan of operation, where it's the plan to manage the program, we usually do a couple of sentences about professional development. You could list all the professional development that your institution or agency will provide, the standard type of training that they would basically force us, right? You get those emails that you haven't done this yet, onboarding, whatever, that are required. But then you can also remind and tell, in addition, the TRIO staff or the staff will attend whatever available priority trainings, and you can even list all the topics real quick. And every single training offers a virtual option. And so that's what you could do. And then you can remind them, the reader, in the budget section, like almost like, hey, I know you don't see it here, but just a reminder that, this staff will be provided professional development via the Department of Ed priority trainings, and they will attend them virtually at no cost to the project. Okay. So that should, you can't do what you can't do, right? Unless somebody wants to, pay for it outright. But those are great questions. So it's okay. So let's see here. Sorry, I am stuck on that. And Dewey, what is the regulation for SSS conference travel? You mentioned 4% is the max or minimum. Okay, just want to clarify, if you go to the SSS regulations on allowable cost for staff travel, so it doesn't say conference travel, it says staff travel cannot be more than 4% of salaries. Okay, so you have to add up just your salaries, not your fringe, just the salaries, multiply that times 4%. And staff cannot spend money on, they can't go over that 4% of not the total budget, but out of the personnel budget only, to pay for hotel, travel. What else, Teresa? Hotel, travel, meals while they're traveling. But that 4% does not include like the COE conference registration fee or any conference fees or any training fees. Those training fees go under other. So that could save you, because COE is what, $1,200 a conference registration fee. That might put you over the 4% if you're SSS. So it's not just for conference, it's any kind of staff travel cannot be more than 4% of adding up all the personnel salaries times 4%, but it does not include the conference fee itself or the training fee. Okay, the only way to go over that 4% is to get prior approval from your program officer. Okay, let's see, anything else?
That's it.
That's it. And look, I think we're close to time. Yeah, 12:58. Thank you all so much. Great questions. Thanks for participating. We'll have the recording up probably sometime tomorrow. You'll get, we'll post about it so you can get the recording. And also I'm going to get that MOU sometime today. I'll upload that into the Google Drive as well, to make sure that we take care of that. The MOU, somebody put that in the chat, right? I think Donna, I saw you put it in the chat.
Yes, I did.
Great. So you have it there, Misty. Did you see it? Okay, great. And I'll upload it anyway in the Google Drive later today. Alrighty, so let's see here. I cannot close these windows. I'm looking at a blank screen. Let me hit close. Okay, I'm back. Thanks, everyone. Great questions. Please start collecting your data and get those letters of applicant and community support going. Those are the ones that you can't crank out in a weekend. Everything else you could if you wanted to, but you don't want to do that to yourselves. We'll be back next Monday. And if you have any questions, please email it to us, and then I'll answer ahead of time, but I'll also go ahead and cover it during this webinar. Thank you, Teresa, as always, Donna and Leah. Thank you all so much. You guys have a great week. Thank you. I'm going to stop the recording.